Ancient texts are short on words and long on meaning. Every sentence costs something to write down, which makes it strange that specific foods keep getting named. Not just they ate a meal, but the exact dish, right down to the spice. A man freshly raised from the dead, trying to prove to his own followers that he isn't a ghost, is specifically handed broiled fish and a piece of honeycomb. A group of religious leaders get publicly criticized for being so precise about paying tax on cumin that they lose sight of everything else. Details like that don't survive by accident. So I went looking at 10 foods from scripture that weren't just eaten, they were used as gifts fit for a foreign official, as payment, as medicine, pressed straight onto a wound, as the specific dish handed to someone who needed strength restored right now, not eventually. And when you actually run the nutrition science on each one, the reason they got singled out by name stops being a mystery. These aren't the everyday snacks people grabbed without thinking. These are the ones that got written down because someone, somewhere, understood they were doing something more. Here are 10 of them, and what we now know about why they worked. Number 1. Roasted chickpeas with cumin. In Matthew 23, Jesus calls out a group of religious leaders for something oddly specific. They were so scrupulous about tithing their garden herbs, mint, dill, and cumin, that they'd lost sight of justice and mercy entirely. The detail worth sitting with is that cumin was valuable enough to tithe in the first place. You don't tax garnish. You tax things with real worth. Cumin had earned that worth over roughly 4,000 years of continuous medicinal use across the Middle East, India, and North Africa for digestion, blood sugar issues, and infection. What's unusual is how much of that traditional use modern research has actually confirmed rather than debunked. Cumin's active compound, cuminaldehyde, shows measurable antimicrobial activity against a range of bacteria and fungi in laboratory studies. Clinical research on people with type 2 diabetes has found that cumin can lower fasting blood sugar and improve insulin sensitivity. It also stimulates bile production and digestive enzyme activity, which in plain terms means less bloating and better nutrient absorption after a meal. Nutritionally, just 3 grams of cumin provides roughly a fifth of your daily iron requirement, a remarkable amount for something you'd normally measure in pinches. Roast chickpeas with cumin and a little sea salt, and you get a genuinely crunchy, portable snack that stacks plant protein and prebiotic fiber, the kind that specifically feeds beneficial gut bacteria against iron, folate, and manganese, then layers cumin's blood sugar regulation and antimicrobial activity on top. One practical note: if you're making this at home, toast the cumin seeds briefly in a dry pan before grinding them, or before tossing them with the chickpeas. A minute over heat wakes up the essential oils that carry most of the flavor, and, as it turns out, most of the medicinal compounds too. This combination would have been everyday food across the biblical world, cheap and unremarkable to look at, which is exactly why Jesus could reference cumin and know every single person listening would immediately understand what he meant. Not everything valuable looks expensive. There's one food on this list, though, that got treated as valuable enough to serve to a man who had just come back from the dead. 2. Honeycomb. When the resurrected Jesus appears to his disciples in Luke 24 and needs to prove he's not a ghost, he asks for something to eat in front of them. In the King James rendering of that scene, what gets handed to him is broiled fish and a piece of honeycomb. Of every food available, that's specifically what's mentioned. Earlier, in 1 Samuel 14, Jonathan dips his staff into wild honeycomb during a battle, and his eyes immediately brighten. Proverbs 16:24 goes further, comparing pleasant words directly to honeycomb, sweet to the taste, healing to the body. This was, by a wide margin, the most medically respected food in the ancient world. Here's what makes honeycomb meaningfully different from the honey most people buy today. It's the entire product. Wax cells intact, with propolis and pollen still present inside. That matters because each component does something different. The wax itself contains long-chain alcohols and esters with anti-inflammatory properties. Propolis, the sticky resin bees used to seal and sterilize the hive, is one of the most thoroughly studied natural antimicrobials that exists, with documented research activity against a wide range of bacteria, viruses, and fungi, including some antibiotic-resistant strains. Add in raw honey's own hydrogen peroxide production, its naturally low pH, and a bacteria-fighting protein called defensin-1, and honeycomb delivers several distinct antimicrobial mechanisms in one bite, working through different pathways at once. Most of this research comes from lab and wound care settings, rather than eating your way out of an internal infection, which is a distinction worth keeping in mind, but as a piece of everyday nutrition, it's still remarkable. One safety note that doesn't get mentioned enough: honey, in any form, including honeycomb, should never be given to a baby under 12 months old, since an infant's digestive system can't yet neutralize the bacterial spores. It can occasionally contain. Past that age, it's a different story entirely. To eat it, just chew a small square straight off the comb. The wax itself is safe. The propolis and pollen are the medicinal part, and the honey inside is doing its own antimicrobial work. As you go, it's the most biochemically concentrated food on this entire list, packed into the smallest form nature ever produced it in. The next food on this list wasn't eaten out of hunger at all. It was sent across a border as a diplomatic gift alongside myrrh. 3. Pistachios and Dates. When famine hits and Jacob sends his sons back to Egypt to negotiate for grain in Genesis 43, he tells them to bring a gift for the Egyptian official. They'll be dealing with something to signal respect and seriousness. The list includes honey, spices, myrrh, almonds, and pistachios. If pistachios made the cut alongside myrrh, a substance valuable enough to later be given to a newborn king, that tells you exactly how highly they were regarded. This wasn't a bag of bar snacks. It was closer to currency. Pistachios earn some of that reputation nutritionally. They're unusually high in lutein and zeaxanthin, two carotenoids specifically linked to eye health and protection against age-related macular degeneration nutrients you don't typically associate with a nut. They carry more potassium than most other nuts, supporting healthy blood pressure regulation, and they have an unusually complete amino acid profile for a plant food. One detail from recent research stands out to me. Regular pistachio eaters show measurably higher levels of a beneficial gut bacteria strain called bifidobacterium, more than what's been observed with most other nuts tested head-to-head. Paired with dates, the same rapid energy, mineral-dense fruit that fueled travelers across the ancient world, you get fast glucose for immediate energy, slower digesting fat and protein from the pistachios, and a combined fiber matrix that moderates the whole blood sugar response while feeding gut bacteria. At the same time, clinical research on pistachios specifically has shown improvements in lipid profiles, blood sugar control, and inflammatory markers. There's also a quirky detail worth knowing. Because of how pistachio cell walls are structured, your body doesn't actually absorb every calorie the nutrition label counts, which means more genuine fullness per calorie than the number on the package suggests. There's even a documented behavioral bonus. Pistachios are one of the few snacks sold in the shell, specifically because the empty shells pile up as visible proof of how much you've eaten, and some research has found that this simple visual cue meaningfully helps people eat less without even trying to. Jacob understood value well enough to survive a famine by trading it wisely. A handful of pistachios with 3 or 4 dates is, nutritionally speaking, close to exactly what he thought was worth sending to impress the most powerful nation on earth. What comes after this isn't really a snack in the traditional sense. It's closer to a syrup, and it might be the most concentrated dose of antioxidants on this entire list. 4. Pomegranate molasses on bread. The pomegranate's usefulness in the ancient world didn't stop at the seeds. Traditional Levantine cultures, the same cultures that produced much of the biblical text, used essentially the entire fruit. The rind got brewed into a tea used against intestinal infections and parasites. The juice got reduced slowly over heat into a dark, intensely tart syrup known as pomegranate molasses, a staple across Lebanon, Syria, and the wider region for centuries, used as food and medicine in the same breath, because in that world, those two categories were never really separate. Reducing pomegranate juice into molasses concentrates its polyphenol content dramatically. The punicalagins, anthocyanins, and ellagic acid all end up present in a much smaller volume, in a form the gut absorbs efficiently. Laboratory research on pomegranate extracts has found they can slow the growth of breast, prostate, and colon cancer cells in cell culture. Studies a meaningfully different claim than treating cancer in an actual person, worth being precise about, but still a genuinely active and promising area of research. On the cardiovascular side, the evidence is more settled. Clinical trials have shown real reductions in systolic blood pressure, in oxidation of LDL cholesterol, and in the progression of arterial plaque. Spread a thin layer of pomegranate molasses on a piece of whole grain flatbread, and you're combining the bread's fiber and complex carbohydrate with one of the most concentrated antioxidant sources you can put into food form. A thin layer alone carries polyphenol levels that rival what you'd get from a purpose-made supplement. What strikes me most about this one is how ordinary it would have been at the time. This wasn't a remedy pulled out for special occasions. It sat on the table the way a bottle of ketchup sits on a modern one, used without a second thought. Something completely unremarkable then has become, by current nutrition standards, genuinely extraordinary now. Mostly because almost nobody outside the region has ever heard of it. A shepherd's ordinary afternoon on a hillside is basically what the following pairing is built around, and its nutritional logic is close to something a modern sports dietitian would design on purpose. 5. Fresh grapes and cheese. This might be the simplest entry on the entire list, and that's exactly what makes it worth including whole fresh grapes, skin on, seeds and all, if you don't mind them, eaten alongside a simple aged cheese made from goats or sheep's milk. That's it. That's what a midday break looked like for a shepherd in the hill country of ancient Israel. And the nutritional logic behind it is close to something a sports dietitian would design on purpose today if you handed them the same 2 ingredients and asked them to balance a snack. Grapes bring fast-digesting carbohydrate for quick energy, along with resveratrol and quercetin for cardiovascular support, potassium for blood pressure regulation, and antioxidants that help offset the oxidative stress that comes from a physically demanding day outdoors. Cheese brings protein and saturated fat, which slow gastric emptying and prevent the blood sugar spike the grapes might otherwise cause on their own. Aged cheese made from goat's milk also carries caprylic acid, and, if it's naturally cultured rather than mass-produced, live bacterial cultures that support gut health and add a mild antimicrobial effect. Put together, you get fast energy that's actually moderated instead of spiking and crashing, antioxidants working on cellular protection, and minerals supporting everything from muscle function to blood pressure. It's worth noticing that the vine and the pasture are two of the most central agricultural images in the entire Bible, and here they're combined into a single snack that balances itself out almost by accident. One small practical addition from a modern angle: cheese doesn't naturally contain much vitamin D. And vitamin D is what your body needs to actually use the calcium in that cheese effectively. This snack works even better eaten outdoors in daylight than in a dim kitchen, which, conveniently, is exactly where a shepherd would have been eating it anyway. People in the biblical world ate this because it was simply what they had on hand. We should probably keep eating it now that we understand exactly why it worked as well as it did. One more entry here has sacred architecture built around its shape, which is a strange thing to say about a nut until you hear the story. 6. Roasted almonds with sea salt. God's instructions to Moses for building the tabernacle's lampstand are oddly specific about botany. The cups of the menorah were to be shaped like almond blossoms. Later, in Numbers 17, it's an almond branch that miraculously buds and blooms on Aaron's staff overnight, out of a pile of otherwise dead wood, as a sign meant to settle a leadership dispute. The almond became a symbol of divine watchfulness, specifically because it's the first tree to wake up every spring in that region, blooming before anything else even begins to bud. Sacred architecture, in other words, got built around the shape of this particular flower. The nut hiding inside that flower earns the attention on its own nutritional merits. 1 ounce of almonds provides well over 1/3 of your daily vitamin E, a fat-soluble antioxidant that protects the outer membrane of every cell it reaches. Almonds are rich in monounsaturated fat the heart uses efficiently, in magnesium, a mineral involved in more than 300 different enzymatic reactions, and one that a large share of modern adults fall short on, and in fiber that feeds gut bacteria, rather than sitting there as empty bulk. Clinical trials consistently show regular almond eaters have lower LDL cholesterol, smaller blood sugar spikes after meals, and better appetite control, simply because almonds are so satiating relative to their calorie count. Roasting them lightly with a pinch of sea salt, the way they'd have been prepared over an open fire in the ancient world, does more than add flavor. Some research suggests mild heat can increase how available certain antioxidant compounds are, though the evidence here is mixed, and roasting too aggressively can degrade other nutrients, so a light touch matters more than a long one. The sea salt itself contributes trace minerals, including magnesium, potassium, and iodine, in a form closer to what the body evolved alongside than heavily processed table salt. This is a 10-second preparation, a pan, a little heat, a pinch of salt behind a snack. The ancient world thought deserved its own sacred symbolism. A small handful is, roughly speaking, what passed for breakfast for a lot of people in that world. A dying king was literally treated with one of the preparations on this list, pressed directly onto an open wound, and it's not the fresh fruit version you might expect. 7. Fig cakes. We come back to figs, but this time in a completely different form. Not fresh fruit, not even the whole dried fig, but the fig cake specifically. Dried figs pressed together into a dense, compact block that could survive weeks of travel without spoiling, used as both food and medicine. This is the exact preparation behind one of the more startling medical details in the Old Testament. In 2 Kings 20:7, King Hezekiah is dying, and the prophet Isaiah's instruction is strikingly concrete. Press a lump of figs together and apply it directly to the boil. The king recovers. Not a metaphor, not a prayer alone, but a specific topical preparation, named and applied. Pressing dried figs together concentrates everything already present in the fresh fruit. The Raisin enzyme, the antimicrobial compound benzaldehyde, the polyphenols, and the mineral density, all packed into a much smaller volume. Dried fig cakes carry iron, calcium, potassium, and magnesium in amounts that genuinely rival many modern mineral supplements, gram for gram. Their concentrated pectin fiber feeds gut bacteria even more efficiently per gram than most other fruit fiber sources studied. Eaten as a snack rather than applied to a wound, a small piece of fig cake delivers sustained energy from natural sugars that release slowly, thanks to the sheer amount of fiber buffering them, minerals that support dozens of enzymatic processes, and antimicrobial compounds that help protect the gut lining. It's dense enough that it sustained armies on campaign, prophets wandering the desert, and traders on month-long routes, all on relatively small amounts. One practical caveat, especially if you watch your blood sugar. Concentrating dried fruit concentrates its natural sugar right along with its minerals. So a fig cake isn't something to eat in unlimited quantity the way you might snack on fresh figs. A small piece goes a long way, which is exactly how it would have been rationed in the ancient world anyway, out of necessity rather than restraint. Isaiah prescribed this with total confidence 3,000 years before anyone could explain the biochemistry behind why it worked. Here's a habit so common in the ancient world that an entire exchange in the Book of Ruth revolves around it. 8. Bread, dipped in olive oil and herbs. In Ruth 2:14, Boaz invites Ruth to sit with the harvesters and tells her to dip her bread in the vinegar set out for the meal. It's a throwaway line in the story, but it reveals something about how food actually worked at an ordinary ancient table. Bread itself wasn't really the point. It was the delivery vehicle. Whatever you dipped it in, oil, vinegar, crushed herbs, was where the real nutrition and flavor lived. Take that same principle and apply it to a slightly different, equally common combination. Dense whole-grain flatbread, dipped in cold-pressed extra virgin olive oil, mixed with fresh or dried herbs, hyssop, oregano, thyme, rosemary, whatever, grew locally. This is genuinely one of the more anti-inflammatory snacks it's possible to assemble from 3 or 4 ingredients. Olive oil supplies oleocanthal, a compound with ibuprofen-like anti-inflammatory action. Hyssop contains carvacrol and thymol, the same compounds found in pharmaceutical-grade antiseptic products today. Oregano oil ranks among the most potent natural antimicrobials studied in a lab setting. Rosemary contributes rosmarinic acid, with documented antioxidant and anti-inflammatory effects of its own. If any of that sounds oddly familiar, even if you've never thought about biblical nutrition before, it's because this practice never actually disappeared. Walk into any Levantine kitchen today, and you'll find za'atar, a blend built on dried thyme, oregano, sumac, and sesame, served with a small dish of olive oil for dipping bread, almost unchanged from what Ruth would have recognized. It's one of the very few biblical food habits that survived completely intact into the present, not as a health trend, but simply because families kept making it. The herbs here were never garnish. In a world where food and medicine weren't treated as separate categories, dipping bread in oil and crushed herbs was how you got antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory, and antioxidant compounds into your body every single day, without ever thinking of it as taking medicine. This one made the Israelites weep in the wilderness, right alongside the cucumbers, and it turns out their bodies had a very good reason to miss it. 9. Melon slices with mint. Melons show up in the same wilderness lament that included the cucumbers, Numbers 11. 5. Where the Israelites, tired of eating manna day after day, specifically mourned the fish, cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, and garlic they used to eat in Egypt. They missed melons specifically enough to name it in a complaint that made it into scripture. That's not a small thing to grieve over. Watermelon and muskmelon, the varieties most associated with ancient Egyptian and Near Eastern farming, are both intensely hydrating and carry some genuinely notable compounds. Watermelon contains lycopene in concentrations that can actually exceed what you'd get from a cooked tomato, and lycopene is one of the more well-studied antioxidants for cardiovascular and prostate health. It also contains citrulline, an amino acid your body converts into arginine, which relaxes blood vessels and supports healthy circulation, part of why citrulline shows up in a lot of modern pre-workout supplements. Interestingly, the pale rind most people slice off and discard actually contains even more citrulline than the sweet red flesh, so there's a case for not being quite so quick to throw it away. Muskmelon, meanwhile, is rich in beta-carotene, vitamin C, folate, and potassium. Add fresh mint, one of the specific herbs Jesus references alongside cumin and dill in Matthew 23, and you bring in rosmarinic acid for extra antioxidant support, menthol for a cooling effect and mild digestive relief, and volatile compounds with their own antimicrobial properties. Melon with fresh mint is cooling, deeply hydrating, mildly anti-inflammatory, and more nutrient-dense than a food that's mostly water has any right to be. The Israelites weren't being dramatic when they cried about losing access to it. Their bodies clearly knew what they were missing, even without the vocabulary to explain why. The last food on this list wasn't an everyday snack at all. It was saved specifically for feasts, and it turns out that decision was as practical as it was celebratory. 10. Raisin cakes with honey and spices. Raisin cakes close out this list because they closed out actual ancient feasts. Across ancient Near Eastern tradition, these dense pressed cakes were celebration food and restorative medicine, at the same time saved for special occasions, presented as offerings, and given specifically to people who needed their strength. Rebuilt. Raisins are just concentrated grapes, and that concentration matters biochemically. The resveratrol, tartaric acid, iron, potassium, and polyphenols all end up far denser per gram than what you'd get from the same weight of fresh fruit. Tartaric acid specifically supports digestive health by feeding gut bacteria and improving how well the body absorbs minerals from food. The natural sugars provide fast, usable energy, and the iron content is high enough that raisin cakes have historically been used to help address fatigue and anemia, particularly in women. Press raisins into a dense cake with raw honey, cinnamon, and cardamom, the spice combination that flavored festive food across the ancient biblical world, and you stack several more layers on top. Honey brings its antimicrobial compounds and active enzymes. Cinnamon has real clinical research behind it for improving insulin sensitivity and lowering fasting blood sugar in people with type 2 diabetes. Cardamom contributes anti-inflammatory compounds and general digestive support. One practical note: If you're recreating this at home, most cinnamon sold in stores is cassia cinnamon, which contains a compound called coumarin that can stress the liver in large amounts over time. Ceylon cinnamon, sometimes labeled true cinnamon, has far less of it and is the better choice if you're using cinnamon regularly rather than as an occasional pinch. This was the feast snack that doubled as medicine, rich enough to feel like a genuine celebration, functional enough to actually restore someone who was depleted, and dense enough to survive weeks of travel or storage. It made sense as the final dish at a feast because it was, in a very literal sense, the most concentrated version of everything the land could produce, pressed together and sweetened for the occasion. Looking back across all 10 of these, the pattern is hard to miss. None of them were reached for out of simple hunger. They were sent as diplomatic gifts, paid as religious tax, pressed onto open wounds, served to prove someone was alive, and saved specifically for the days that mattered most. In the ancient world, nobody drew a hard line between food and medicine the way we tend to now. A fig cake wasn't a snack that happened to also help you heal. Healing was simply one of the things food was expected to do, alongside tasting good and keeping you alive. What gets me, going through the actual research behind each of these, is how rarely the ancient reasoning turns out to be wrong. Wrong about the mechanism, sure. Nobody in the ancient Near East knew what a defensin protein or a urolithin was. But right about the outcome, again and again, arrived at through nothing more sophisticated than paying close attention over a very long time. If you take one thing from this list, maybe it's this. The next time you reach for something between meals, it's worth asking whether it's doing anything for you beyond filling time until dinner. For thousands of years, for a lot of people, the answer to that question was clearly yes. It's worth asking whether it still could be